What is up, guys? We're back with another video, and today we're talking about nvidia's RTX 5070 Ti, specifically MSI's Gaming Trio OC Plus. So let's go ahead and take a look. Going over some quick specs here, the RTX 5070 Ti is actually going to be based on the same GB203 chip that the RTX 5080 is. Now, it is going to be a cut down version. So you will get 8,960 CUDA cores, 70 RT cores, 280 tensor cores, 280 TMUs, and 128 ROPs. As far as the memory goes, you're going to get 16 gigabytes of GDDR7 memory that's going to run across a 256-bit memory interface. Now, as far as clock speeds go, the base clock is set at 2300 megahertz, and your GPU boost is going to be 2452 megahertz. MSI's Gaming Trio OC Plus is going to sit right below their Vanguard series in their product stack. This is a factory overclock card, so your GPU boost is going to be set at 2572 megahertz. As we take a first look at this card, if you're wondering about dimensions, I'll go ahead and put the official dimensions up on the screen right here. At 338 millimeters long, it should have no problem fitting in most mid-towers. The main shroud of the card features different angles and materials, which definitely gives this card a more aggressive feel. MSI is going with a dark gray or gunmetal look, which I think looks great. Embedded in the shroud are your 3 cooling fans, which make up part of the Tri-Frozer 4 cooling solution. These are MSI's Stormforce fans, which feature 7 claw texture blades designed to enhance air pressure, while the circular arc optimizes airflow. At the center of each fan, you of course have the MSI Dragon logo. Looking at the card from the side, we can see the rest of the cooling solution, which is made up of 2 heat sinks, which are connected by multiple heat pipes. MSI makes use of a high-low fin design, which enhances airflow and reduces turbulence. The heat pipes are MSI's core pipes, which have a square-shaped contact area for maximum heat capture in conjunction with a vapor chamber. On the side of the card that will show if you have a side panel window, there is an MSI logo and a GeForce RTX logo. Right in the center of the card, you have your 12V PWR power connection. As a reminder, this card does have a TDP of 300 watts, so a 750 watt power supply or higher is recommended. Right next to the 12V PWR power connection is a small switch that's going to toggle between your silent and gaming mode. These are just fan curves, and our card was shipped in silent mode. The back of the card has a full coverage metal backplate, which is sort of split. So half of it has a brushed metal look and the other is a more matte color. At the end of the card is a cutout for airflow, and there is an MSI Dragon logo here. It has a reflective coating on it, which looks great. The actual end of the card has another MSI Dragon logo on it. This will actually light up with RGB lighting and is meant to be seen through the front panel window of your case. It's really awesome to see more companies design elements like this on the end of the card. Looking at the opposite end of the card, we have our connectors, which include 3 DisplayPort 2.1B and a single HDMI 2.1B. As you can see, the card is slotted for 2 slots, but with the shroud, I would say this is probably a 2.2 to 2.3 slot card, so just keep that in mind. When it comes to RGB lighting on this card, you have 3 small light bars that go across the shroud. These are now slightly diffused because the actual design of the shroud itself, and you will see the ends of these on the side of the card just a little bit. At the end of the card is of course that MSI Dragon logo, and it gets illuminated as well. Now let's move on to testing. So here's a full breakdown of our test system. When it comes to the RTX 50 series, one of the biggest things that you are going to get is DLSS 4 and more importantly, multi-frame generation. So up on the screen here, this is how DLSS 3 used to work. So you would render a frame and then you would generate a frame. And this would essentially double your frame rate. That's what we saw with DLSS 3. With DLSS 4, you can not only just render a frame and then generate a frame, you can render a frame and then generate up to 3 additional frames, doing 2x, 3x, or 4x generation essentially. So we tested this with 3D Mark's DLSS 4 test, and in that you can see that with DLSS off in our first test, we scored 41.48 FPS, and we turned DLSS on with 2x, we got 151.26 FPS, so a nice jump. But because we can, get those additional frames, when we go to the next one, we get 207.05 FPS, and then at 4x, we get 252.62 FPS. I also tested this in Cyberpunk 2077, and you can see how that scales as well. So if your title does support DLSS 4 and multi-frame generation, you can exponentially increase your frame rate. When it comes to new graphics card launches, I always get really excited, and I think gamers are the same way. They're looking to upgrade, they're looking to build a new PC, and we see these announcements from nvidia like we saw at CES, where a $549 card will perform the same as a 4090. Obviously, that's not true, and it just gets our hopes up a lot. And with the RTX 50 series, it just seems like our hopes have been just kind of destroyed with these launches. Availability, pricing, all of that kind of stuff in the RTX 5070 Ti is essentially the same thing, and I think it's even worse than what we saw from the 5090 and the 5080, especially when it comes to just raw performance. In our testing at just raw performance, if we compare this to something like the 4070 Ti Super, it's only 6.56% faster at 1440p and only 8.2% faster, 8.24% faster at 4K. That is not great generational performance. We like 15%. We just want 15%. That's what we want, kind of like a baseline 15%. Yeah, in some titles it may get that 15%, maybe even up to 20%, but overall, that low of performance gain is not great. The saving grace of this card would have been the price. So nvidia has set the MSRP at $750, which is actually $50 cheaper than what the 4070 Ti launched at. But in my opinion, that MSRP is essentially a phantom MSRP. There's no Founders Edition. From what I've seen so far, I don't know, because we don't have, we don't have actual listings of products yet. We have leaks and things like that, but from everything that I've seen, you're not going to be able to get this card at the $750 MSRP. Of course, this card isn't going to be MSRP because it's an aftermarket overclock card, and we'll talk about that. But I think that's kind of where we're at, is no availability, not generational performance gains, and nvidia has no competition, so they're able to get away with it. I think that's where we're at when it comes to RTX 50 series. We saw availability of 5090 and 5080, hardly anything, and prices skyrocket. With this card, again, we were told the MSRP of this card from MSI, but they told us after the first batch sells out, you probably won't be able to get it at that MSRP price. It's just where we're at, and it's kind of, as a gamer, as an enthusiast, as somebody who wants to recommend graphics cards to their friends, and of course to you guys, it's just really, really hard to recommend this card. There's nothing to, just like with the 5080 and 5090, there's nothing else out there, so nvidia just gets away with it, right? There's no other card at this price and this performance level that's worth picking up. And that's, I guess you could call that AMD's fault. They're not releasing a high-end graphics card this time. 9070 XT still is not out, and it's probably going to be more on par with something like a 5070, not a 5070 Ti. So as enthusiasts, as gamers, we're just getting less and less from nvidia, and it's just ultimately disappointing. And again, we cannot necessarily blame people like MSI or Asus or any of the other manufacturers, Gigabyte, you know, because that MSRP that they're given from nvidia isn't necessarily like a real MSRP, if that makes sense. Now, this card from them specifically, their Gaming Trio OC Plus, is a really great card. I've been a fan of the Gaming X or Gaming Trio line for a long time. You do get a really great cooling solution. It is super quiet during operation. You get some cool RGB lighting. Of course, you get the full coverage metal backplate with the MSI logo on the back. Factory overclock will get you a few more FPS in games, and it's a solid card overall. And one thing I really like that MSI has done is they are designing the end of the card now, which is going to have some RGB lighting. I really like that companies are doing that because, of course, all of our new cases do have those front panel windows, so we want something we can see through there. I like all that. This is a good card from MSI, but overall, the 5070 Ti is just, it's just not a card that I can recommend right now. It just isn't. The sad part is, again, there's no competition. All of the previous cards that maybe you want to pick up, the prices have gone up so much just because there's no stock of anything. And I think when this actually does go on sale today, later today, or tomorrow when you're watching it, because I'm shooting this obviously before this comes out, it's going to be gone. There's going to be scalpers, and it's going to be the same thing that we saw with 50 and 90 and 5080. And like I said, that's sort of where we're at. Now, if you do have any questions about the 5070 Ti or this card specifically from MSI, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. And of course, let me know what you think about what NVIDIA is doing. Do they actually care about gamers? Let me know in the comments, and we'll see you guys in the next video.